When you consider most horror games are several hours long, there's really plenty of time for them to get their scares in somewhere between the introductory cutscene and rolling the end credits. But you try telling that to these 7 horror games, which barely let you sit down, pick up a controller and adjust the brightness slider until nothing is visible before they're trying to Hebe your GBs, coming straight out of the gate with scares of the utmost, nerve-shreddingest intensity. Consider these no-chill horror games that absolutely do not F about, and beware spoilers for the following.
Speaking of nothing being visible, you better grab some batteries for your night vision goggles because in Outlast, you're gonna need them. Then automatically feel even worse when you realise you can actually see what's lurking in the dark. In horror films, there's always the moment where you decide that the main character has done one foolish thing too many. Maybe they went up the stairs when they were meant to be running out the front door, or just didn't turn a light on straight away when they entered a room. Well, Outlast's first 15 minutes is made of those moments because apparently you're playing a total plonker. Let's present the evidence. Driving to an abandoned psychiatric institution, leaving your car at the very locked gates even when they are clearly not open for business, and finally finding a way inside the ominous looking building using a window that has clearly been used as an exit. The fact that you then have to actively follow blood trails into the air ducts to progress, well, we don't have any words. It's almost like protagonist Miles Upshur kind of deserves what's happening in the first 10 minutes of Outlast, because this is a game that most assuredly does not F around.
Little pig.
I assume the rest of the game is just as scary as this, but nobody's ever played past this point to check, so sadly we'll never know.
Isaac, can you hear me? Dana, I found Isaac Clarke. Repeat, I have him.
Great work, Franco. Be careful. He's been out a long time.
Oh, yeah.
It's not entirely clear what's happening at the start of 2011 survival horror sequel Dead Space 2. Although it would probably be easier to figure out if this chap was able to finish his sentence.
You're in terrible danger.
I mean, I think he was going to say danger? Got kind of cut off at the end there. The sequence that comes immediately after this is you, Isaac, sprinting down a corridor stuffed with an almost sarcastic number of screaming monsters exploding violently towards you.
Isaac Clarke, if you can hear me, run! Run!
Which we think you'll agree is a bit much for the very first second you take control of your playable character. And did we have to be in a straitjacket? Seems like a hat on a hat, Dead Space 2. You'll likely be so busy screaming panicky expletives at the screen during this ludicrously intense opening that you'll fail to see any of its several horrible jump scares coming. I guess the makers of Dead Space 2 looked at the start of 2008's Dead Space, a masterpiece in slowly rising tension, and thought, who the hell has time for that in 2011? Seriously? With all of Adele's 21 to listen to? No chance.
I don't know about you, but I prefer my horror games to ease me into things, maybe with some light creepiness, a soupçon of spookiness, before they launch me into, I don't know, a sequence where I'm being chased by a chainsaw-wielding butcher. Someone should tell That's a Tango Gameworks the evil within. Because it's 10 minutes in, you've barely got your legs under you, and yet the game is literally cutting your legs out from under you with a piece of forestry equipment. Oh neat, whirling blades as well. Really went all out. After your harrowing experience with the corridor of whirling blades, you might reasonably expect the evil within to give you a breather and let you get your bearings. To which the evil within says, nice idea. How about instead you fall down a chute of more whirring blades and land in a big vat of blood and gore? To be honest, we probably should have realised this wasn't a game that was going to ease us into things, except big vats of blood and gore, when we noticed that the quick save icon for the evil within is a nail going into a brain. Although that could easily be a logo for a new edgy coffee house. This guy would definitely be first in line. Look at him. He's not fussy about his order though. He's got a safe for ahead. He'll take coffee, milk and water in any combination.
Boo!
What? I thought that was a safe joke.
Bob! Ah!
Remember me, Alex.
Eternal Darkness is a celebrated horror game because of its power to evoke a brooding dread and a slowly rising sense of unease. Eventually. Because there's nothing slow or brooding about the very start of this nerve-shredding GameCube horror classic, which after a 1-minute unrelated cutscene drops you immediately into the shoes of protagonist Alexandra in a room you've never seen with a shotgun, already encircled by murderous half-decayed skeletons. Cool. Cool and chill. The fact the game drops you into combat with a squad of reanimating corpses with no context or instruction on what the controls are makes this one of the most undeniably intense and frightening openings to a horror game ever. And that's before your ammo runs out. Still cool. Still cool and chill. Shortly after you run out of ammunition, the game leaps to cutscene, and it's revealed this 0 to 60 opening was nothing more than a bad dream. Having proved its place in the pantheon of horror games with no interest in effing around, the rest of the game continues at a much more traditional, albeit still very unnerving pace, and you can reflect on the positives. For instance, having endured that opening 90 seconds, the rest of the game probably has less power to terrify, even in the bits where, for instance, your torso just pops off for no reason. Huh. Joke's on you, game. I feel nothing.
The very first thing you see when you boot up the original Silent Hill is a stark text screen saying, "The fear of blood tends to create fear for the flesh." God, can you chill out a little bit, Silent Hill? Yikes. If you think that's bad though, wait till the game actually starts, because brother, it ain't getting better anytime soon. The game kicks off with you, as protagonist Harry Mason, waking up in a car. Stepping outside, you find yourself in the foggy, snowy town of the game's title, and assuming that nothing bad's going to happen to the unarmed protagonist this soon after pressing start, you go for a little jog to get your bearings. That's when you spot a little girl who looks suspiciously similar to your daughter Cheryl, who you're looking for, and start to give chase.
Cheryl? Is that Cheryl? Where are you going?
Unlike most kids, this little girl is apparently an Olympic-level long-distance runner and manages to lead you on a merry dance across town through a rusty iron gate and into an alleyway where you immediately discover some kind of eviscerated animal carcass. Choose to ignore these obvious bad vibes and carry on, and the alley gets progressively darker, the camera work progressively more avant-garde, and the sound design, well, someone got a hefty bonus that year, let's put it that way. Eventually, you reach the end of the alley where you discover, oh no, someone's lost all their skin and also been crucified on a chain link fence.
What is this? What's going on here?
And then a bunch of weird, skinless kids with knives turn up and stab you to death. Not bad for, what, 4 minutes playtime? Of course, it turns out that this is all a horrible nightmare, and the town of Silent Hill is good, actually.
Where is everybody?
I'd tell you if I knew, believe me. But from what I can tell, something bizarre's going on.
Oh, okay, it was a nightmare, but the town is actually that bad. Glad we cleared that up.
Andre, what do you think? Andre? Andre! Andre! Clancy, you see where Andre went?
Call us controversial, but we're just going to say it. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard has officially the scariest start to a Resident Evil game. Yes, I can tell you just how afraid I was the first time I saw that zombie look over its pixelated shoulder in the OG experience, but I can't replicate the unintelligible noises I made blundering into the Baker Mansion at the very beginning of Resident Evil 7. Although, wait. It might have been that. Before you've even laid eyes on anyone in the Baker family, you have endured creepy folk art made of dead cows, the world's most terrifying home movie, a floating corpse, and a chainsaw fight with your wife that ends with your hand being shredded off. And then another chainsaw fight with your wife, but this time you only have one hand. And all this in less time than it takes to watch an episode of Frasier, who, it must be said, would absolutely hate this place. The immaculate horror vibes are partly down to just how effectively Capcom's development team managed to mainline Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then siphon it directly into the game's opening minutes. The Baker family, when you do meet them, are a clear homage to the grim villains of Tobe Hooper's masterpiece, unrelenting in their kidnap and torment of poor Ethan Winters.
This was supposed to be a very special feast. My boy.
This game also gave the ultra-detailed RE engine that powers the game its first outing, making your first steps inside the Baker family house a despicable treat for the eyes. Yep, on further inspection we can confirm this is pretty much the opposite of a Beverly Hills mansion from Selling Sunset. Unrelated, but can someone explain to me why those houses have so many bathrooms? It's weird.
A town. Oh, thank God. I thought we were miles from anything.
When you're a horror franchise, you want to establish a unique brand identity to set yourself apart in the marketplace of pant-wettingly terrifying experiences. If you're Silent Hill, you do it with fog and radio static.
What's going on with that radio?
If you're Outlast, you do it with night vision and sparing not a single second in getting straight from the studio ident to the skin-crawling scares. I'm not even counting the helicopter crash that begins the game, because if you didn't see that coming, you must be new here. No, I'm talking about how a few minutes later you're creeping about with only your night vision camera for company, stumbling over the flayed corpse of your former pilot.
That did not happen in the crash.
Being swept up in a huge bloody wave like in The Shining, but if little Danny Torrance had been hit by a wall of blood right after stepping inside the hotel.
We're not alone here.
If you were thinking you'd catch your breath after that early doors nightmare vision, think again, pal, says Outlast 2, because here's you tiptoeing around a pit of sacrificial victims and dodging locals with glowing night vision eyes who are all whispering, let me check, yep, the most sinister things it's possible to have whispered at you in the dark.
God.
Oh,
Do you
Jesus!
want him?
Who?
Then you'll have him.
As a statement of intent, this first half hour is extremely clear. If you play horror games to be disturbed and upset, then great news. You're about to be more distressed than my jeans. You'll have to take my word for it, they're pretty cool.
Do you hate it? Do you hate this world?
So those were 7 horror games that you started playing them and then immediately with the horror and the fear and the frighteningness. Why games? Just ease us into it, won't you? Can you think of any other examples of games that just go from 0 to 60 in this fashion? If so, let us know in the comments. And I assume there's nothing scary going to happen at the end of this video because
God, Luke, there's a monster behind you!
A monster? Oh, there he is, just out of shot. My God, he looks horrifying. I would describe him, but there's that Stephen King thing about they're always scarier in your imagination. Oh boy, oh man. Ooze is all I'll say. Yeah, what's that monster? People should like the video. Yes. Well, I mean, obviously. Oh, yeah, all right. Don't get shirty with me, mate. I'll tell them. He also says, if you'd like to go the extra optional mile in supporting us, what's the rest? Then you can sign up to our Patreon at the following URL. Go on then. www. You don't need to do that bit. People understand how you're. Patreon.com/OXClub. There's a Discord and stuff. It's a nice hangout. You're on the Discord, aren't you, Monster? I've seen you in the Motorsports channel. Yeah. Thanks for watching.